This is the Gospel Revolution.
Since you're knocking on the door, you're begging to come in, yeah. Unaware that all the while love's been knocking from within. You are the love you see, a perfect yet unique, righteous, holy.
Here's the founder and president of the Gospel Revolution, Michael Lilborn Williams.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, Daniel Thomas Rouse.
Whatever time zone this may find you in, we're here for you.
Exactly. Just winter, spring, summer, fall. I've started out singing. This is already going downhill.
As my friend says, I'm here for it.
Goodness. So how have you been doing in this past period of time since we last gathered together to break bread of the powerful gospel that seems to be our thing that we love to do the most, huh?
I have been doing wonderful, and I think that the power of the gospel has allowed me to survive a birthday party with about 12 little girls at a water park.
Now that sounds apocalyptic to me.
Yes. the Friday night before this happened, I was thinking, what did I get myself into?
Oh, were you starting to believe in the rapture again?
I was praying. Take me home, Jesus. But no, all went well, and Evelina had a wonderful day. So,
well, there's one thing that everybody that listens to us should know, and that is the implications of the gospel and how that affects raising children. Goodness, you should just take Daniel and his little girls for an example. And, Daniel tells me the things that his daughters say occasionally, which, they get to hear from grandpa occasionally. And then they hear from dad all the time. And it's really sweet to hear them come together and let you know that, dad, grandpa said this or that. And, that's just crazy.
the one that just comes to mind at the moment is Evelina had I think one of the times we went to visit my dad, she had sniffles and she was kind of not feeling great. And so my dad prayed for her. I don't think I was around when that happened. We were driving home the next day, and Evelina, we're driving in the car, and she piped up and she says, "Dad, Grandpa lied to me." I said, "He did." I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "Well, he said that if he would pray for me, that I would get better. And I didn't get better." The honesty.
Oh, and that's one of those times, how many times have we said here that one of the most damning thing about prayer is that sometimes it seems to work. Mm-hmm. When you pray about everything. It is inevitable when you pray about everything. And if somebody has a cold that they're, obviously not sick enough to be being treated for, and you pray for them, guess what? They're going to eventually get well. The problem is she could have gotten well that night. Yeah. That could possibly have created a lifelong struggle with spirituality.
Yeah.
Now think about this, folks. Now, this is how crazy we are. Thank you, Jesus, for not answering that prayer.
Right. Yeah.
But Jesus didn't answer nor not answer that prayer. Mm-hmm. And, but what a one. Oh, you know what? I'm telling you, I'm sitting here right now with just the awareness of the power of that moment in your little girl's life, and that she was able to come to those conclusions herself, So because, the obvious is the obvious.
Yeah.
And if Grandpa said, if I pray, you will be healed, at least she didn't hear from Dad. Well, honey, sometimes God takes a little longer to answer prayer. Sometimes, God just, don't use God like he's just going to do things just when you want him to, whenever that's what they just heard in church,
Yeah.
But then you have to come up with all of the fence laws. I call those fence laws to the gospel, to the fake gospel. Then you've got to come up with reasons why it don't work. Just the same as they had to come up with reasons why they couldn't keep the law and that they'd do other things to make up for it.
Oh, it sure is good to be free and to share that freedom with my little girls.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Free, I'm free at last.
Now Daniel's
Almighty, I'm free at last.
Goodness gracious. It's getting worse, not better.
We best move on. I'm not here for it. And how are you, Mr. Williams?
I'm doing very well. I had a pulled muscle in my back. I'm at that age where I got to let you know what's going on with my back and my hip, my ribs, my head.
The organ recital.
I know. Exactly. I'll have to remember that one. But that thing, oh goodness, that thing nagged me for a whole month. And but that has cleared up, and I am back in the gym. And yes, I did harm myself trying to show out for my grandson. So, but I feel good.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, were you going to sing again?
Oh, yeah. I was trying. You just talked right over my song, though. To which everybody in the GR said, amen. All right. Daniel, we have been having a wonderful time, still continuing. I think that the folks are going to get number 8 on the Canada conference today.
Yeah.
This is really amazing, this pageantry of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And of course, we should have, and we did warn you, and we warned ourselves that once we get the bulk of this out and get a teaching down, now we have something to reflect back off of. And we can see the places that need further explanation. But we didn't know they needed it at the time. But some of the questions that we've had come in have helped us to focus on these things once again. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to continue on the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And we have a couple of things I think we're going to start with of people who responded to us and said, wow, I didn't know that when you said this, that, or that. And I said, oh, really? Yeah, well, aren't we really smart? When I didn't, I was like, I had no clue we said that. But it's but it's amazing the things that people are hearing as we go through it. Now that they are thinking in the mindset of this, they're actually hearing things and understanding the gospel, things that we never stopped to allow that thought to process. But some of you guys are processing this faster than we are. And so when you hear us say something that we maybe didn't expound on, you might want to let us know what that is, because we may not know that we said it. So,
yeah. Yeah, goodness. And, Michael, between you and I, we've had questions that we have shared with one another as well. And one of them, I think it really follows up on last week's discussion, which we talked about basically the death of death, that death was completely 100% defeated in the resurrection of Christ. And we walk through that, why we don't see or why we still see physical death in the planet Earth. And we looked at some comparatives between that. We want to dive into that a little bit more. But up front here, Michael, one of the questions that has kind of been in the back of our mind since we started, and I think this goes back even to when we did the Revelation, is what in the world is this second death spoken of in Revelation chapter 20?
It's, of course, the revelation, as we've been so diligent to try to get through, talk about, and now there is another refocusing again because of our understanding that we do know that it covers at least part of, if not all of, the 1,000-year reign. We are the things we've got in the hopper. I mean, we're going to go into all of the teachings in the Revelation on Babylon and show you that that is speaking of a historical event that had spiritual implications. God worked everything out on stage. This pageantry was put on display through Israel. Israel was chosen as part of this pageantry, and this 1,000-year reign of Christ is through that pageantry over the nation of Israel and the first temple, from the first temple on forward, until death was abolished at the cross. But the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, was chosen to act out this pageantry. And but the things that were acted out on stage historically had profound spiritual implications as to how that was going to culminate. And part of it was types and shadows, just allegory after allegory, type and shadow after type and shadow of the people and what they did and when they did it and who did what to who. And this is like, wow, that's why I see Christ in that. I see Christ in that. So when we talk about the pageantry of the 1,000-year reign, we're talking about this interaction that took place. Still, the one that really so rings in me so much is this statement in the Revelation of Jesus being the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I was thinking yesterday about this, and in fact, I sent you a text on it, and about if we had just known that King of Kings and Lord of Lords was a historically, scripturally fulfilled thing, we would not have been having people trying to become kings under Jesus, the King of Kings. Yeah. And him anointing them, thinking that he's anointed them. Believe me, Henry VIII was not anointed by God to do what he did. Henry beheaded over 70,000 people. And that was just over religious issues. He beheaded Catholics, he beheaded Protestants, and mostly family members. So, because the Plantagenets were a family that actually, one of the women that he beheaded took the guy 11 whacks to get her head off. It's horrible. But she actually had more bloodline credentials to ascend to the throne than Henry did. And he had her husband killed. He had her son killed and her. And because he was beheading so many people, he had to get a teenage boy they were all up north beheading his professional beheaders. They were all up north, and he had to get this teenage boy to cut this 68-year-old woman's head off, who had greater authority, bloodline authority to the throne than he did. And he missed, and she ended up getting up and running from him. And they were doing it in some back room because they needed to hide it from everybody. I know some of this history you guys probably think I'm absolutely crazy for going into, but But it helps me to understand how wrong Christianity got it. So after 11 whacks, he finally cut her somewhere between shoulders and head off. This beast of a man, this 68-year-old woman, he felt a threat from because her bloodline was stronger than his for the throne. And supposedly because of disagreements over religion, over doctrine. So anyway, there's your history lesson. And that was Margaret Pole. And if anybody wants to see if I'm right on my history, that's Margaret Pole. And one of the most infamous beheadings that Henry ever ordered. And I think he was having dinner or a dance or something while it was going on. None of these kings were anointed by God. The one that's there not is not there because he's chosen by God. Do you know he thinks he is? Do you realize that he thinks he is anointed by God? Do you realize that there is a nation that probably the majority of them think that he is appointed by God to rule over them? Now, a very much diminished role, of course, but this whole thing of bloodline elevation to having royal blood and all of this stuff, it is so anti-Christ. It's just, there's only one royal blood, and that's the one that shed his blood for us all and made us all equal. And if they would have just understood the culmination of two things, the culmination of the 1,000-year reign, which defeated death, terminated all authority, and then established an eternal reign of Christ over which all were righteous. So the 1,000-year reign resided over a structural authority of which Christ was over. Then they had the anointings, the thing that they did with David, and all of these very symbolic, very types and shadows of Christ. But when Jesus rose from the dead, he entered into an eternal position in ruling over all righteousness. That's the power of the eternal reign. So one of the things we're going to get into is this difference between the 1,000-year reign and the eternal reign.
You know, this ruling of the kings and priests, you know, and a lot of that comes out of this misunderstanding of the 1,000-year reign, because you do see that, especially in the Revelation, about he has made unto us kings and priests.
Yeah.
Peter says the same thing.
Yeah.
And even here in Revelation chapter 20, it talks about that we'll reign with him for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And so there is this ongoing expectation that the kings and the priests were ordained of God. Michael, in the political climate that we're in here in America right now, we see the same thing. Even though he's not a king, he or she's not going to be a king or queen, we're still seeing this. This is God's chosen one.
Oh, yeah.
This is who God has picked. And, it just depends on your doctrine, on what side of the fence you're on there, and who is going to be your candidate. But God has a choice. God has a chosen one, and that's all wrong. These are all man-made systems that are out there.
And the odd thing that I've noticed also, Daniel, is that in many cases it has nothing to do with what they believe, as far as their spiritual inclinations. But still, they have this sidecar persuasion that God is the one who's choosing this. And the only thing that we have to say about the election is, and I know I'll get in trouble with people, but folks, I've got to share the gospel. If God has chosen somebody to be the president of the United States, then the work of the cross did not do what Jesus said it did.
Come on.
Which is put down all power, all rule, all authority. and we're all elected to serve. We're all in that position. As Jesus said, there's only one position open. And if those positions aren't being presented as positions of service, we have no positions open.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's our full political inspiration, is that, man, if we could just get people to stop thinking that this is some position of authority, because it is not a position of authority. It is a position of service. Is it a position of power? Oh, it comes with immense power. But you either use that power to serve or you use that power to exercise authority.
You know, even in the story you were sharing there about the beheading of that lady, even that, because of the spiritual implications that Christianity has imposed on these positions, you see the people out almost rejoicing when they become a martyr for this case. And again, it's in the Bible, but it's misused in the Bible. Michael, as we talk about this second death, let me read the first few verses here in Revelation chapter 20. And you'll see this physical reign of kings and priests, and you'll see these who have become martyrs. Revelation 20, verse 1, Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. I'm just make a point here, and I think we'll circle back here in a little bit. Listen to the names that are named in this next verse. He laid hold of the dragon and the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. Just remember that dragon, the serpent, and the devil are named in this chapter. And he cast him into the bottomless pit and sealed it up and set a seal on him so that he should not deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. But after these things, he must reign. He must be released for a little while. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and the judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received the mark on their foreheads or their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. So if the 1,000 years is completed at the resurrection of Christ, then we have to go backward in history to find out who these people are. And I think we can thank Apollos for naming some of these people in Hebrews chapter 11. And he concluded that some of these people the world was not worthy of. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such, the second death has no power. But they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him for 1,000 years.
Well, the part of this that we're getting a glimpse at is what is this first death and second death. The thing that requires us to do is back the cameras up to the bigger picture. Is there a first death recorded in the big story? So if I were to be standing in front of any Bible school in any place, even in Islam or and in Judaism, when was the first death? Well, they would all make reference to Adam, right? And that would be correct. Now, the one thing that we know is that Adam did not die physically. Adam lived some 900 years after that. The proclamation that the day now, and this is where I'm really glad we've gone through this about what does the Bible mean, especially the Hebrew scriptures. What does it mean when it says a certain amount of time? It means that amount of time. If it says a day, it means a day. Now, there are places where that the Hebrew got translated in ways, just like the 70 weeks of Daniel. there's a way that is stated that it's I'm not even going to try to go into it, but it's weeks of weeks. Mm-hmm. Instead of just the term week. But that's what it says in the Hebrew, even though the English did not get it correct. So when it says in that day, God made it very clear, and the evening and the morning was the first day. That's what God calls a day. We've gone through, then the reason we went through this, we went through and showed where that the God prophesied, the prophets prophesied the word of the Lord to Israel and said, you're going to be in bondage in Egypt for 491 years. And they were in bondage 491 years. And then there was a prophecy that came long before that said they were going to be in bondage in Babylon for 70 years. And they were in bondage in Babylon 70 years. So when it says these things, it means them. And time, when time is referred to, especially in the Hebrew scriptures, it's vitally important that we understand that our time is God's time. Mm-hmm. We don't go into Peter's theory of relativity of time. That's what he wanted to do because he got caught. He got caught with his prophecies and his perceptions not coming true. And now we're more than 2,000 years and holding. But we know that just simply is not true. None of these things have happened. And every generation has thought that they are the generation. This is the generation. This is the generation. How much clarity you need when Jesus said this generation? So all of those things where he said this generation, this day, the week, the 1,000-year reign of Christ is not a symbolism that can be spread out over thousands and thousands of years, or even millions if one wanted to. And the other prophecies, the 70 weeks of Daniel, takes us right straight up, right to the cross. The reason that people have put a delay on it is because they don't believe what Daniel chapter 9 says would be the results of that. The results of the 70 weeks of Daniel is what the gospel revolution teaches. Mm-hmm. We teach that the things that Daniel says would be fulfilled at the end of these 70 weeks, and it takes you right up to the 70th week and tells you exactly what's going to happen. And you even get this great tribulation time coming in, and it matches up side with the 1,000 years when Satan's going to be released for a period of time, and it's going to get really bad, but then bam, all of a sudden everything's going to be brought to a conclusion. So I went through that, hopefully not too ramblingly, because it's important that you know that when God said in the day that you eat thereof, you will die, he did, whether we understand it or not. Now, we can debate that part all we want to. The one thing that you cannot debate is he did not die physically. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I will not go into this hyper spirituality mode and say that day was prophetic. If it was prophetic, do you know that every day that it was prophetic, it said it was prophetic. It said this will happen in this number of years, this number of days, next week at this time, this is going to happen, whatever. This was prophetic, and it told us exactly what would happen when certain things happen. In the day that you eat thereof, you will die. So that was the first death. I think most, especially in Christians around the world, believe that death was passed on to the entire human race. So everyone tasted of the first death. Everyone was affected by the first death. And it's interesting because I was just reading through some statements that were made about Paul, and it said in the fact that they that he died, and about all of them that were already dead. And we've just gone through that whole part of helping people understand that those that slept and those that was everybody from Adam forward that was asleep or in whatever state. People you mentioned separated from God, and they just, our mystic friends just go crazy. I have no problem saying I don't understand exactly what that was. But the fact of it is that man was never totally joined to God from creation.
Yeah.
It's not like, so we agree with you. Yes, that doesn't mean like separation from God. The issue, which they don't accept because they believe in perfection in the first creation. Of course, Christianity goes with the fall of man, and mysticism goes with original perfection and then original sin for the Christians. It's neither of those. So when you have the first death, then Jesus died for everyone who was dead, right? We were all dead, and he died. And when he went into the grave, he revived all of humanity, dead and alive, as Paul explains. But then there was coming a second death right after that. Daniel, can you kind of point us as to what that second death was?
I will continue reading here a little bit. I'm going to skip a few verses because 7, 8, 9, 10 is where the devil comes out and he's walking around.
Yeah.
But then if we go here to verse 11, then I saw a great white throne and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. Then the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged each according to their works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
There's a lot of real clarity there in that by identifying the first death, we're not. That's why people believe in the second coming, because there's got to be another resurrection. But in Christ, you don't need two resurrections. You only needed one, and that in one died, we're all dead. And if one died, then all were already dead. And then, of course, and like I said, you can take this 70 weeks of Daniel and its culmination of coming up to a tribulation period and this temporary loosing of Satan, and they are simultaneous. Those events line up with each other. But then you have another death coming. So the division here is that everyone. Now, did it say it there, or do we have to back up a bit as to who all was left? It was everyone whose name was not found in the book of life.
Yep, and anyone who was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
All right. Now, I know previously we found out that everybody's name was written in the Lamb's book of life when it was talking about humans. But now he's saying there are names. There are names that got cast into the lake of fire. There are names. There are names.
The dragon, the serpent of old, the devil, and Satan.
There's the names.
And the devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone.
Yep. It was none of the deceived got cast into the lake of fire. The deceiver got cast into the lake of fire. And
the simple equation here, Michael, is if you were a part of the resurrection, then the second death had no power over you.
Yeah, that is the simple equation. And the first part is if you were a part of the resurrection, if you were part of the death. Well, Paul made sure we all understood that everybody partook of the death. Therefore, everybody partook of the resurrection. If everybody partook of the resurrection, then we have only one group of names that got that were not written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
And Ethan brought it to our attention that, Michael, you actually said that during the conference.
Evidently, he says I said it. It was news to me.
Now, when you told me that Ethan told you that, it rung in my mind. Yeah, I remember him saying that, and I remember sitting there thinking, huh?
And that's about as far as we did as an RCA dog moment,
Yeah.
And, yeah, for our younger listeners, you have no clue what that is, but I
only know because you explained it to me before.
I did explain it, didn't I? Like the kind old man that I am. But folks, that's the entire equation. It is like a mathematical equation. All went into the first death. All came out of the resurrection, and the ones that deceived and the devil and the serpent and all of that were, and we get told that all of those that experienced that resurrection, their names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. That's how they got raised up. But we also have an understanding that everybody was raised up, that was a part of the human race. And then we have a supposedly this list of names of people who weren't written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And it's like, there it is. There's the names. Here are the names that did not make it into the Lamb's Book of Life, and therefore were indeed, as it said, thrown into the lake of fire.
The dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan.
And that was the second death.
My goodness. Now, Michael, if we take this just the way my mind goes, then I say, well, what about us? So we weren't physically a part of the first death because we were born, as you've said before, we were born into this. And Michael, I think that was maybe be the transition to talk about what is this eternal kingdom that Jesus set in, because we weren't born into this kingdom that was coming to an end,
right?
This world that was coming to an end. We here in 2024, and those of you listening in 3024, we were born into the eternal kingdom.
Yes.
Everlasting.
Very important that we acknowledge that. I always appreciate it when people correct me, because it's just the way that we are so used to saying it. I was listening to the Paul's testimony, and I realized that I made those statements. I did try to redirect in the middle of that. But if you listen to the one that I did on the testimony of Paul, it sounds like I'm talking like these things happen to us individually. But I did go back and cover that and say that it was the whole world that experienced it all at once. So this is something that we're very glad to cover again and again and again, because it's a huge mindset shift away from this personal Lord, personal Savior. And it is what has people thinking that they are kings and priests. Well, you can go read Peter's definition of it. And Peter wasn't talking about Gentiles. He was talking about Jewish believers. Why? Because they were fully expecting a new kingdom. I mean, historically, they would have been expecting nothing less. But what they got, they didn't realize was something more than that. But they couldn't see it. So it didn't qualify to them. Because they were the ones that had a personal stake in who was going to sit at the right and the left. What positions are we? We accept who you are. Who will you make us to be?
I was taught that, and I taught it in our Word of Faith doctrine.
Yeah,
is this very thing that we were going to be made kings and priests. And, we would say we are kings and priests now spiritually, but we will be kings and priests. And Michael, it got kind of weird because then we started actually having people that we would rule and reign over in the millennial and in eternity, that's really weird.
It just started turning very Mormonish.
Yeah.
You got to get your own planet then,
Yeah. Yeah, with space travel, just I'm going to go to Planet Michael today. Okay, here I come. And then that other part of it is as we gone through 1 Corinthians chapter 15, is people are waiting for where's my glorified body, and they want that body that they can walk through walls and Superman type body. But really, again, I just thought of this. Recollection of a teaching that you did about the body of sin is dead. That body is dead, and we're alive. And this mortal physical body has eternal life in it.
Yes, the mortal has put on immortality in the fact that it cannot be corrupted.
Oh, that is so good. That's good preaching. Brother.
Yeah, that's what was everybody was. So what immortality did Adam have? Adam never had immortality, even before he sinned, because he had the potential to sin.
Oh.
So the only ones that's ever had immortal bodies is those that are alive at the resurrection of Christ. It says it very plainly. But because it's something we can't see, just like the disciples couldn't see that earthly kingdom, then Christians are putting this off to some future event because we still bury grandma and grandpa, and in very unfortunate events, parents bury their children and all kinds of just really very difficult things to do. But until this pursuit of a physical resurrection for your physical body, until folks, you don't know the gospel at all if you think that there's a physical resurrection of your physical body. You've put everything off. There's nothing you can have. How could you possibly see yourself as righteous and completely holy and perfect and still think that you have a body that is corruptible?
And that Jesus is anointed most holy.
Yeah. That's the other thing is that that you have to say, if your body is not already what it needs to be as a result of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, then the body of Christ himself is not anointed.
Ooh.
And that's why Paul was so drastic in his testimony and said, I'm telling you now, even weeping, that the very disciples had become the enemies of the cross of Christ. I'll read that for the rest of my life. I've been reading it for a couple of decades now with the understanding, the awareness, and every time that I read it, the how profound that is almost more than I can grasp.
Yeah.
But it's also beyond my ability to try to say that it means something else other than that. Because he has named names.
Yeah.
The disciples, Paul said, weeping, that they have become the enemies of the cross. The very
Mm-hmm.
ones who followed Jesus have become enemies of the cross. Now, did he explain what made them enemies of the cross? Yes, he most certainly did.
Mm.
And they fit into a category called the concision, or also Judaizers is what that is also called, and in the New Testament. And the folks, they had great big old meetings over this, attempt to drag this. And as I listened to the last Tuesday's session, the one thing that I missed is that we, of course, we emphasized what Paul was emphasizing, and that was circumcision. But you got to realize that that the comment that he made when he identified them as enemies of the cross, he said that if they preach anything that says that the law, that by obedience to the law can give you any form of righteousness at all, you've fallen from grace.
Mm.
That's what you call an enemy of the cross.
Yeah.
We can make those things sound not quite so serious, but they were serious. How serious were they? Look at the history of the world since the cross. Folks, none of this horrible stuff should have ever happened. There should have been no kings. Mm-hmm. There should have been no priests. There should have been no pastors. There shouldn't have been any of that. And if in any degree that we held to them at all, they all should have been positions of service and servitude. I mean, real positions of real service, where that you're the one paying the price for this. You're not the one getting rich because of your servitude. And I was looking through our Gospel Revolution thing, and a thing popped up about Kenneth and Gloria Copeland, and it said 50 years of servitude, and had her and him sitting there. And I thought about that for a moment. Ken and Gloria Copeland, 50 years of servitude. 50 years of amassing wealth nearing $1 billion. $1 billion.
Mm.
And there are people in their vicinities that are going to bed hungry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, folks. I can't do that. I can't feed everybody, but I'll guarantee you, I don't meet somebody who needs food and bypass them. I'm not going to do that. And if I had that level of wealth, I would have an organization put together to try to distribute some of that to where it could help people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything against people that want to make money and make billions, make all the billions you want. But I tell you what, if our multi-billionaire class does not turn around and realize that they need to, as many of them have, I have to say that, many of our old industrial age billionaires turned around and started giving their money away. And some of these guys, if they don't start doing that, they are going to bring a cataclysmic economic disaster upon themselves, because you can't have everything just going that much to the top and so little going toward just people's income until the thing just finally breaks down. And with the system where we're at this time, the only thing we can really do is that these folks need to wake up and realize that if they hang on to every penny they've got coming in, they're going to destroy the very system that has made them wealthy, which I'm very happy that they've become wealthy.
Mm.
Probably said too much, but hey.
Michael, to just reiterate a couple points that we went over last week, and to kind of bring this a discussion about death to an end here. We went over a couple comparisons between what the Apostle Paul shared in 1 Corinthians 15, that this enemy was destroyed. Now, Christianity wants to wait and say that it will be destroyed,
Yes.
or that this destruction is an ongoing process. But Jesus did it once and for all when he was on the cross and he died and said, "It is finished." He finished it. It's a done deal. And as we wrote in the Religion Free Bible, that he, with one big gulp, destroyed death. And we compared that to Hebrews chapter 2, that said that he had destroyed the one who had power over death, and that he just tasted death. And so there's this big difference between, with one great gulp, destroying death, and just a taste of death, and destroying the one who had the power over death, and destroying death in and of itself.
Yeah, Daniel, that these comparisons really begin to settle in, and we weren't able to see those differences until we actually published what we had. And then once we heard ourselves saying it, then you and I both were able to catch some of these things about even the differences we didn't notice. And we're going to notice even more differences. And it is important to understand that Hebrews says that Christ tasted death for every man. And that Paul's perception was that, using the same type of analogy, one of them played off of the other one. If you would ask me, I would say that Paul wrote this second, saying, he didn't just taste death, he swallowed it up in one big gulp,
Yeah.
Because I can't see Apollos, if one did hear the other, I can't see Apollos saying, "Oh, no, he didn't swallow it up, he just took a lick." So that's just, a game I play in my mind, whether that happened or not, whether they knew what each other wrote or not. I don't know. I would think that they would have in some way have been aware of what each other was writing. But we do have that difference.
And one of those has a direct quote from the Hebrew Scriptures, and that is the one in 1 Corinthians 15, that that what Paul said is completely 100% confirmed in the Hebrew Scriptures. I believe it's Isaiah 28.
Let's read it.
Now you got to make me turn in my Bible. Turn your Bibles. This is my Bible. Isaiah 25 and verse 8. I knew there was an 8 in there somewhere. He will swallow up death forever, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from all faces. The rebuke of his people he'll take away from the earth, for the Lord has spoken. He'll swallow it. That's not a taste.
The word is Bella, and it means to make away with, specifically by swallowing.
Wow.
There ain't no licking going on here. And to destroy, generally to destroy.
My God.
And it is translated as the word destroy, devour. It is translated as the word eat up. It is translated as be at end. It is translated as spend up and swallow down or up.
Wow.
There ain't no licking going on here.
And that's kind of Christianity, is kind of viewing this like a lollipop, that, Jesus is just on the throne, one lick at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
And, over the next however many thousand years, here we are 2,000 years later, just one lick at a time, he's destroying death. And that totally opposes what the prophets have prophesied about the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ.
So you're saying Christianity is trying to figure out how many licks it takes to but Paul said we're no licking going on here. We're taking one big gulp, and that's it. Now, and see, folks, this is why the Hebrew Scriptures are so very important. we've got my man here. This is Apollos. Paul said he was a master at the Hebrew scriptures. And here we have caught him red-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he did not know that he was misquoting this? How could he be, in Paul's eyes, the guy who translated this, who spoke this correctly, and as it is, and the other man who's also a Hebrew scholar, evidently, and he says he tasted of death. And it's just too drastic of a difference, folks. When you're, we're comparing licks to gulps.
Yeah,
and you can discuss how somebody can gulp, and you can discuss how somebody can lick. But a lick's a lick, and a gulp's a gulp. I'm sorry, I'm moving the table. I'm sure it sounds like earthquakes going on. Then, of course, the other point that is made, and that is that he has destroyed death. And I think that even this verse itself does not say that he destroyed him that had the power of death.
Mm-hmm.
This says that he destroyed death.
Yeah.
He swallowed up death. That word swallowed up is translated as destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
He destroyed death. There's nothing here that they could translate, and all of that got translated from this one verse, really.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two people quoting one Hebrew text. The Hebrew text says that death was destroyed. The other person who used the same reference says that he tasted of death. He licked death. He just took a lick, but it is talking about death. He swallowed up and destroyed death. This is not dealing with the one who had the power of death, at which he did destroy the one that had the power of death. But that's the verse they're trying to quote. Paul got it right, and Apollos got it wrong. I don't know how else to tell you that other than.
That was going to be my question. Now, it is true that he did destroy the one who had power of death as well, right?
Yes.
That was a package deal.
Yes, and that was in the final death. Yes, the one that we would never be touched by, the second death.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's so amazing. Christianity's gone around trying to figure out, man, I tell you, you don't want to be in that second death. They don't even know what it is, because the second death to them is going to hell. Mm-hmm. The second death is hell, whatever it is, being destroyed completely.
Yeah.
So even the understanding of that is just so askew in Christianity. And here we have this powerful understanding, and we have brought you back to Isaiah. We've done you the Berean. We've done you a good Berean here, and we went back. And folks, I can't change this. I cannot make what Apollos said about this correct. I will tell you openly, and so will Daniel. We can tell you that the writer of Hebrews, some of you still think it's Paul, but it cannot possibly be Paul because of the number one, all of these statements that are so not Paul, and the fact that this very same verse is interpreted by each writer, one of Hebrews, one of Corinthians. And they come up with two different conclusions about this.
And I'll read again, Revelation 20 and verse 14. Then death and Hades, which is the word often translated as hell, were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And anyone not found written in the book of life, which was the one who had power over death, that old serpent, the devil, who is the devil and is Satan, he was cast into the lake of fire.
So Apollos got it right, but what he was arguing was that physical death still had not been dominated.
Death fell into a burning lake of fire.
Yes, it did. And that's our fourth song of the day. So. We are quickly heading toward an album here.
Now, Michael, a question, and this has come into us several times. Why then do we take the stance that Isaiah 25 and verse 8 is completed already in the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, and not a future event?
Because the fact of it is that we know that the scriptures have been fulfilled. All of the scriptures have been fulfilled.
Yes,
that's exactly what Jesus said. Jesus said about the scriptures and the law. He put them together, and he said that not one jot or tittle shall pass from the law until all be fulfilled. So the verse before that speaks of the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy the law or the prophets, but I came to fulfill them. And then he said, this is how you can tell that the law and the prophets are done for. That is, if one single law gets changed. If one single law is fulfilled, then every single prophecy is fulfilled. And isn't it amazing that that's what AI told us about the 1,000-year reign?
Yep.
That if that's true, then all scripture is fulfilled.
And coincidentally, all the prophets prophesied during the 1,000-year reign of Christ.
Well, that just blew me away. I just, it's like, I'm not even looking for this. You can lighten up a little bit. We are already duly impressed. Yes, you are the great teacher. Okay. We get it. But I mean, it was just walking around looking. I mean, all you got to do is look at your environment that you're in when you're talking about the death, burial, and resurrection and the Hebrew scriptures. You're looking at the same environment, and that environment, it has a conclusion. You're looking at the same pageantry. You're looking at a pageantry that was so magnificent that the pageantry. So what do you do pageantry for? Everybody in town comes out to see the parade, right?
Yeah.
So it was to gain attention. That's what it was for. It was so that attention would be drawn. Everybody's attention would be drawn to the pageantry. Everybody wants to see the coronation. Everybody wanted to see Diana's wedding. Nobody wanted to see Camilla get married, right? So, but everybody wanted to see Diana get married. There's just so many things, and they call them royophiles, people who are just really into the whole monarchy thing. And I have to admit, I think I'm getting less attracted to it. I have been a royophile in that I really love that pageantry. There's something about it. And at the same time, it turns my stomach. It's like, all right, so there's something really conflicted here in me, is that I detest this monarchical whole attitude that somebody should be a position and get money for simply having blood of a certain person. That to me is just gross.
Yeah.
And that is the system that this country came out from under. And we're not supposed to have any of those here. This incredible pageantry, yes, it has been amazing. And we're still going to have to go into some more of this stuff. I think there's a possibility that as I was looking back and getting ready, Daniel, that it seems that the writer of Hebrews, Apollos, saw the 1,000-year reign as concluding in then a eternal reign starting after that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not he saw that in what light, I don't know. But the one thing that we do know that we're able to conclude that he did not see, whether he saw the 1,000-year reign as just starting. I'm not real sure that when he said that Jesus was raised up and seated at the right hand, that he's not talking about the eternal reign, now that I'm looking closer at it. I'm not real sure that he's denied that the 1,000-year reign has not taken place. But the one thing that we do know is that he denied that it defeated death.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, he just simply did not accept that, even as the verses that we've gone through here. So we still have a whole lot to go through and to understand. But boy, we may not have taken the whole gulp, but we sure took a big bite out of it. That's for sure. We didn't just lick this. We got a big bite.
Yeah, and it seemed like the Apollos also kind of had this picture of an eternal priesthood as well, and an eternal kingship. And we have seen that all come to a conclusion, because why do you need a priest when you are one with the priest? Why do you need a king when you're one with the king?
Yes, and these are the writings that has established Catholicism and the priesthood in Catholicism.
Mm.
And so it's not good. I mean, this is not, let's stop trying to make Catholicism look good, because there's some good people in it. We have got to stop measuring that doctrine is good or right because good people are involved in it.
Mm.
All you have to do is go back in history a little bit. Let me give you another little history lesson. Do you know that during the Dark Ages, Ethan and I were talking about this, during the Dark Ages, which the Catholics reject that they brought it on, but they brought it on. They said, oh, no, it was poverty and it was lack of education. Who do you think told everybody that they got everybody's money, and who made education evil? It was Catholicism. So they try to point to the things that they caused as causing the Dark Ages instead of them. I mean, that's like the arson reporting the fire, right?
Yeah.
But now here's a little tidbit of history for you. Do you know that while the Dark Ages were taking place, that just a few hundred miles south in Spain was a golden age taking place?
Mm.
Now, I found out that I've known this for some time, but it's taken it's a part that I'm researching now. I'm also a descendant of Sephardic Jews. So the Sephardic Jew is the group that left the very realm of time that we've been teaching about, the 1,000-year reign, and that it was people that lived during that time that left Israel and came across the northern part of Africa and came into Spain and Portugal. And they are called Sephardic Jews. So I'm a descendant of, I've got 3%, between 1% to 3% Sephardic Jews, Jewish ancestry. And Daniel's sitting there smiling like, wouldn't you know it?
Of course.
So, of course, I've started looking at, Sephardic Jewish ancestry. And Ashkenazi is the big one. but Ashkenazi and Sephardic, they are different in aspects that I'm not going to go into about right now. But it's very interesting. So the term Sephardic means Spanish. It's just another word for Spanish. So these are Spanish Jews, and they did come from Israel, and it came sometime between the fall of the first temple and the somewhere around the rebuilding of the second temple. So during this time that we have been talking about, I had a group of ancestors saying, "Hey, let's pack up, get the truck packed up. We're getting out of here. We're not staying around for the fall of Babylon." So that's how these guys got into Spain. But I just want to show you, all you have to do is take a different picture at a different time. Now, right now, we know what the radical terrorism of Islam is doing, right? Nobody, that's not hidden from anybody's eyes. Do you know that during this time that the Sephardic Jews lived for several hundred years in Spain, that it was the nation of Islam was in control of Spain?
Mm.
And they lived in peace with the Jews. And the Jews, they lived under the authority of Islam, and it was better than staying home. And but during that time, it was an absolutely, they call it the golden age of Spain, and it was when the Sephardic Jews and the Islamic the Empire of Islam was in authority, and everybody was living in peace. Now, I don't doubt that they had some problems, but this is when you're comparing this to the Dark Ages, and you had all you had to do is get in a boat and go south down to Spain from Western Europe, and one place you've got the Dark Ages taking place, and just a few hundred miles south, you have a Golden Age taking place.
Mm.
And not only is it a golden age, it is the religion of Islam that has brought about this golden age, that has brought peace to the Sephardic Jews, to the Jews that escaped Babylon, and also to all of Spain. You should see that there's nothing to see in Europe from the Dark Ages. It was all rag huts, and it was terrible. They didn't have any of the old castles that came from the time of the Dark Ages were all made out of wood, and there's nothing left of them. And the ones that have been rebuilt in their place, they say they're that old, but they're not that old, because they didn't have anything that they built that endured. You can go to Spain and see these buildings that were built during the same period of time, and they are the most beautiful and most ornate buildings that are on earth, and they were built during the Dark Ages.
Wow. Well, Michael, today we love comparing, don't we? We just love to compare the different types of thoughts, and that's why we love all the comments that come in on the teachings that we do, whether you're a Christian, whether you're Islamic, whether you're Jewish, whatever you are, whether you're agnostic. We like to compare Christian mysticism. We love to compare what Christianity is teaching. We love to compare what the different writers of the New Testament have said. But it all boils down to our ultimate comparison is to the Hebrew Scriptures. And that's what we've been doing this week and last week, is comparing all of these different viewpoints of death and physical death, and also the second death spoken of in Revelation. And we just compare it down to, what do the Hebrew Scriptures say? And I think the one that we just highlighted here today, Isaiah 25:8, is just a beautiful picture that it's done. It's complete. You can't get a more complete, abolished, fulfilled picture of death than Isaiah 25:8. It's a done deal.
Yeah, and it completely obliterates Who got it right?
Right.
Was there a difference? Yes, there was a difference.
Yeah.
Who proves there was a difference? Isaiah 25 verse 8 proves there's a difference. And what Isaiah 25 verse 8 also proves that on 2 points, Paul got it right. And on 2 points, the writer of Hebrews got it wrong.
And it also gives us validity to look at the revelation. And, Michael and I, if you've listened to us for years, Michael longer than me, you knew historically how we felt about the revelation.
Yeah.
And we have come to really appreciate it. And that's because of our respect for the Hebrew Scriptures and how we can allow the Hebrew Scriptures to look at the revelation, because we know as we went through that, I can't remember how many hundreds, if not thousands, of quotes out of the Hebrew Scriptures that are in the revelation. And Michael, we got one more coming up next week that we want to look at amongst many others. But the one comparative thing that we want to compare next week is what the writers are talking about in an eternal reign versus the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Is there an eternal reign? Is Christ seated at the right hand eternally? What about us being seated in heavenly places? Is that eternal? Is that temporal? What is all of this eternal, temporal thing? And we want to do it in the same fashion that we did this, is we want to compare what the New Testament writers are saying, what some of the other teachers out there today are saying, as compared to what was prophesied and fulfilled in the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ.
Well, one thing I can say from that lead in is that the tempter has not been destroyed. Boy, I'm telling you. What a temptation you did. My goodness. I can't wait.
But you got to come back next week.
Darn it.
And so it is. We must leave you, family and friends. If you'd like to know anything about the Gospel Revolution, then call our office on
832-318-9339.
And speak to us about how you want to participate. Or go to www.gospelrevolution.com and hit the connect link. You can find us on your favorite social media network, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please be sure to hit that subscribe, share, and like button on whatever platform you are listening. Now it's good night from Daniel Rouse in the frozen tundra.
And it is good night from Michael Williams right here in Clarksville, Tennessee. To all of our friends down in the Southeast that endured this hurricane last week. Goodness, our hearts are with you. I don't know anybody personally that I know of that was harmed, but let's just hope that the neighborhood and the neighbors and people pull together and come together to help these folks in this really terrible tragedy. And, and even during that, you heard people trying to figure out who was sinning and who was doing what and why. Goodness gracious. They heard Gloria Copeland's, Ken and Gloria's daughter on, and how that God just spoke to her about this hurricane. And, there's some hurricanes you just can't do nothing about. This is like, oh, Lord, have mercy. And she actually was, and then took authority over the hurricane. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, we were there. We laugh at them. We laugh at ourselves because we've definitely done the same things. Anyway, the folks.
Thanks for pulling me into that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to let you get away. Guilty. Yes.
But no shame.
No shame. Yeah. Thank you guys. And we'll look forward to next week. Thank you.
We sure hope that you enjoyed today's Powercast. And remember, we'll be here to do the same thing all over again next week, only
better.
Since you're knocking on the door, you're begging to come in, yeah. Unaware that all the while love's been knocking from within. You are the love you seek, a perfect yet unique, righteous, holy. lost and alone, staring at the unknown, and these words be the compass that guides us right home. We are one, we are love, we are. Know where you gotta be, nothing to complete. It's not a thing that you need, you're the love. Just remember to breathe and take a second off. Look, I'm just trying to remind you that you're perfectly divine, flawlessly designed. When you're lost and alone, staring at the unknown, let these words be the compass that guides us back home. We are one, we are love, we are. Yeah, we are love.
Deconstructing religion and barbecuing the sacred cows of Christianity before your very eyes. You are listening to
The Gospel Revolution.